The apartment was dark, the kind of dark that seemed to swallow sound. The rain outside tapped relentlessly against the cracked window, and the wind rattled the loose frame as if it wanted to come inside. Inside, in the corner of the living room, a little girl sat with her knees pulled to her chest, her cheeks streaked with tears. Her small hands trembled as she clutched the hem of her dress, whispering through sobs. "Please, don't hurt us." Her voice was fragile, trembling like glass on the verge of breaking. She looked up at the man towering over her mother, his face red, his eyes cold with anger, his words slurred with alcohol. Her mother, pale and weary, tried to shield her daughter with her own body, pressing the girl back into the corner as if she could somehow absorb the blows meant for both of them. "Quiet her down," the man growled, his hand tightening into a fist, "or I swear." Before he could finish, the door burst open. The sound of it slamming against the wall was like thunder. A tall man stood in the doorway, his suit soaked from the rain, his presence filling the room like a storm. His eyes blazed with fury as he took in the scene. The cowering child, the trembling woman, the looming shadow of the abuser. "Step away from my family," he shouted, his voice echoing through the tiny apartment. The abuser froze, his hand still midair. The little girl gasped, her sobs halting for a moment as she blinked through her tears. She knew that voice. She had heard it in phone calls, had seen the man only in pictures and in the rare, distant glimpses of a life she thought she'd never have. "Daddy," she whispered. His name was Daniel Hart. A millionaire by every definition, wealthy, powerful, and always wrapped in an air of authority. But none of that mattered now. He wasn't a CEO, wasn't a mogul. He was just a father. And his daughter was crying for him. "Did you lay a hand on them?" Daniel's voice dropped lower, sharper, every syllable dripping with venom. The abuser stammered, backing away slightly. This isn't what it looks like." Daniel didn't wait. His fist shot forward, connecting with the man's jaw, sending him crashing into the table. Glass shattered, the sound cutting through the room. "Get out," Daniel roared. "If you ever come near them again, you won't walk away." The man scrambled, clutching his bleeding mouth, stumbling toward the door like a coward suddenly stripped of his power. And then he was gone, the door slamming shut behind him. For a moment, silence. The only sounds were the rain outside and the sobs of a little girl who could barely believe what had just happened. Daniel turned, his chest heaving. His eyes softened the second they fell on her. "Sweetheart," she stared at him, wide-eyed, her lips trembling. Then, with a sudden burst, she launched herself into his arms, burying her face into his chest. "Daddy, I thought you'd never come," she cried. Daniel's arms wrapped around her, pulling her in tight, his hand smoothing over her damp hair. His throat tightened, his eyes burning with tears he refused to let fall. "I'm here now," he whispered, "and no one will ever hurt you again." Her mother, Anna, stood frozen against the wall, her hands pressed to her mouth. She looked at Daniel as though he were both salvation and a ghost from the past. It had been years since she had last seen him, years since she had walked away from the world of wealth, unable to bear the pressure, the endless spotlight, the constant headlines that came with being the wife of Daniel Hart. She had chosen a quiet life, or at least she thought she had. But that quiet had turned into silence, and the silence into danger. She hadn't expected to fall into the hands of someone cruel. She hadn't expected her daughter to grow up flinching at the sound of footsteps. And yet here he was. Daniel looked at her, his jaw tightening, his expression unreadable. "Why didn't you call me?" Anna's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't want to drag you back into our mess. I didn't want you to see me like this." Daniel stepped closer, his daughter still clinging to him. His voice softened, though there was still steel beneath it. "You should have called me the first time he raised his hand. You should have known I'd come." Anna's knees weakened. She sank into a chair, covering her face. "I was scared. I thought I could handle it. I didn't want to need you." Daniel knelt in front of her, his free hand reaching to gently lower hers from her face. For the first time in years, their eyes met. "It's not weakness to ask for help," he said quietly. "Not when it's about her. Not when it's about us." The little girl, Lily, lifted her head, her tears slowing. "Daddy, are you staying? Please don't go." Daniel kissed the top of her head. "I'm not going anywhere, sweetheart, not anymore." That night, he didn't return to his mansion. He stayed in the small, broken apartment, sitting beside his daughter's bed until she fell asleep clutching his hand. He looked around at the peeling wallpaper, the broken heater, the evidence of a life that should have been better. His heart clenched with guilt. He had been building empires, making deals, earning millions, while his daughter was here, afraid, vulnerable, unprotected. And Anna, she had been carrying it all alone. As dawn broke, the rain cleared. The sunlight poured weakly through the cracked window, but for the first time, it didn't feel cold. Daniel rose early, made coffee with the old machine in the kitchen, and set a cup in front of Anna. She blinked at him, bleary-eyed, surprised. "You don't have to. I want to," he interrupted gently. They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Anna spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "She thinks the world of you. She's always asking about you, even when I told her you were busy, even when I thought you'd never come." Daniel swallowed hard. "I should have been here, all this time." Anna's eyes softened. "Then be here now." The days that followed were a blur of change. Daniel arranged for the abuser to be permanently barred from coming near them again. Lawyers, restraining orders, security, everything handled in a matter of hours. He moved Anna and Lily into a safer place, a beautiful home that felt warm and safe, not cold and intimidating like his mansion. But it wasn't the house that mattered, it was the way Daniel became present. He was there in the mornings, making pancakes with Lily. He was there at bedtime, reading her favorite stories. He was there in the quiet moments with Anna, sharing laughter that felt unfamiliar at first but soon became natural again. And slowly, the cracks in their lives began to mend. One evening, as the sun set in golden streaks across the backyard, Lily ran across the grass with a smile that lit up her whole face. She stopped suddenly, running back to Daniel, tugging his sleeve. "Daddy," she said breathlessly, "can you promise me something?" Daniel knelt, looking into her wide, earnest eyes. "Anything. Promise you'll never leave us again. Promise you'll always be here to protect us." Daniel's chest ached. He pulled her close, his voice thick with emotion. "I promise, sweetheart. From now on, I'll never let you feel afraid again. You and your mom. You're my whole world. And I won't let anything take you from me." Anna stood in the doorway, watching them. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could be a family again. The millionaire father who had once been distant, unreachable, untouchable, was now the man who mattered most, not because of his wealth, but because he chose to stay. And in that choice, everything changed.